In 16th century, more specifically in the 1542, King James V of Scotland died 6 days after her daughter's birth, daughter that later would inherit the throne as a baby of 9 months old. Mary Stuart was born on December the 8th of that year in Linlithgow Palace, West Lothian, Scotland. She as the offspring of her father's second marriage to her mother Mary of Guise, a French woman, who became the second French wife of King James after Madeleine of Valois, who died of tuberculosis. James and Mary had 2 sons before marriage. Unluckily, both sons, James and Robert, died at a very young age, being the last child Queen Mary of Scotland. As the infant queen could not fulfill her duties for obvious reasons, she was in charge of her mother. From England, there was this proposal of an arranged marriage to Prince Edward, that it will be later be King Edward VI. But the Scottish did not accept, and later on the English did not take the situation very well. So they sent raids to attack Scotland. War that was known as the Rough Wooing War. Because of this, Mary was sent at the age of 5 years old to France. As her mother's family was one of the most powerful aristocrats in the country, she lived in the French court with her grandmother Antoinette of Guise, where she was obliged to change her Scottish ways because it was barbaric at the eyes of the French aristocrats, and in everything about her. She had to adopt a ladylike form of living, and now French was her first language. Adding to this, her studies in Latin, Italian, Spanish, and Greek. Despite having a life in opulence and luxury, she loved hunting and dancing, excelling in both of the arts. As she grew up, she grew up to be known as a tall 5 feet 11 inches woman with a remarkable beauty and a slender figure and distinctive red gold hair, with a taste for music and art that made her intelligent and attractive, crowning her as the ideal princess. Later, King Henry II of France, he was betrothed to his young and sick eldest son, Francis, who was 1 year younger than her. As they practically grew up together, so they had this bond. So they really like each other. They were like friends. So it was an arranged marriage, but they really got along, and they married in a pompous ceremony in Notre Dame, in cathedral in Paris. So this was to secure the alliance between both nations, signing treaties and secret arrangements in which was stipulated the union of both kingdoms in the eventuality. While the plans of the wedding were developing in England, Elizabeth Tudor ascended to the throne in 1558. This is important because Mary donned dual crowns, and Elizabeth was always aware of this fact. She always felt threatened because she was a Protestant in the eyes of the Catholic Church, and an illegitimate product of an unlawful marriage. So Mary represents a constant threat due to her state as Catholic Queen of Scots. and also her lineage on her father's side that made her the rightful heir of the English throne. Let's remember that Margaret, her grandmother on her father's side, was Margaret Tudor. So Mary's husband was crowned Francis II, making her queen of both countries, France and Scotland. But unfortunately, he died the next year, and his death was caused by an ear infection. After the uneventful events, Mary returned to Scotland. Some registers said that she was reluctant to return, while the other ones said that she was willing to do it because her mother also died. So she needed to take the throne on her own. So, arriving in 1561 in Edinburgh, Mary, now on her birth country, noticed that she was not well suited to cope with the problems that a queen had to face. Scotland was in the middle of a religious reformation to Protestantism. So despite having many things against her, she managed, with the help of her half-brother James, Earl of Moray, but everything went down when she married again to her cousin Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, which shared the same grandmother on her father's side. He was weak, ambitious, and a drunkard. She married out of love. She was passionate about that and married him because she deeply loved. Her marriage antagonized all the elements of interest in the power structure of Scotland. As he was a Tudor, Elizabeth I, let's remember, saw this as a menace to her reign. And in addition to this, her half-brother who helped her before rebel, I don't want to use the word rebel because it's too strong, but he was really angry because he felt jealous and he felt that jealousy of power. Tragedies kept happening when David Rizzio, who was the secretary of Mary of Scotland and his favorite, was murdered by her own husband, Darnley, and other nobles out of jealousy, killing him in front of Mary, who was by that time 6 months pregnant. And by the time her son James was born, he was baptized as Catholic, which angered the Protestants. So it was a constant back and forth of anger and displeasant actions. She fell ill in 1568, which made her consider the idea of divorcing Darnley. This is due to the murder of Rizzio. This was not necessary. The divorce, it never came because someone killed the man before he divorced him by blowing up his house. History said that he was found in the garden of the house, so it was very unlikely that he died in the explosion. Anyway, after the crime of her husband, she only took back bad decisions, and the lack of wise counselors made it worse. This aggravated when she remarried only 3 months after her husband's death to the principal suspect of murder, James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell. The Scottish nobility rise against her, and he was no better man than Henry Stuart. He wanted to become king, and he also was accused of kidnapping and ravishing her, and held her captive in Dunbar Castle before the marriage. And as she was ill and needed someone to support her, she stayed with him afterwards. As the Lord of Congregation did not approve her marriage, she was imprisoned in 1567 in Lochleven Castle, which was located in a tiny island. and compelled to abdicate the throne in favor of her son James. As she was imprisoned, Bothwell was imprisoned as well and exiled until he died insane in 1578. In 1568, as soon as she escaped, and she gathered a small army that was defeated by Protestants at Langfly. So she failed again as a queen, trying to obtain her role as the queen again. Because after this, she flew to England. She expected a warm welcome. Instead of receiving that, she was imprisoned for 18 years. This is due to she was the focus of a variety of English, Catholic, and Spanish plots to dethrone Elizabeth I. So, some claim that Elizabeth did not have the jurisdiction to do this, and it was very shady in the way in which Elizabeth took her as a prisoner and kept her captive for 18 years. But this is so uncertain. In 1586, a plot to murder Elizabeth and a Roman Catholic uprising convinced the monarch to kill her cousin. This was confirmed by some letters in code in which Elizabeth confirmed the treason. Mary was beheaded in 1587 in the Great Hall of Fotheringhay Castle. She died at the same age as his mother, 44 years old. Her son, James, he accepted the fate of his mother, but after Elizabeth's death, after she died in 1603, he became King of England, Scotland, and Ireland, claiming his right to be the king of the United Kingdom. In 1612, he had his mother's body exhumed for Peterborough, which was the place in which was buried first, and reburied her in Westminster Abbey in a magnificent monument raised just for her. He also relocated Elizabeth very near to where his mother was. Mary of Scots was known as the femme fatale, or as the daughter of the debate. She suffered a lot, and she died very young. Also, many of historians said that she was the queen that ruled with the heart and not with her mind, and that's what occasioned her unfortunately end.